you know, in your open public meeting to have an opportunity to float ideas, maybe float trial balloons, you know, in a safe, low risk environment, to just ask each other, does anyone have interest in this, right? But to show you the legal potential violation that can occur, you know, calling each other one at a time to ask how we're going to vote on an issue would run afoul of the open meetings law, right? We need to be doing that in a public meeting setting, okay?
I don't want to be photographed.
Yeah. All right, the statute goes on. Remember I said that the concept of the openness rule applying to electronic communications was first added to the statute in 1996. Well, in 2021, the state legislature finally got around to giving us a little bit more clarity on what types of electronic communications would not constitute a meeting. Because, you know, email can be a good tool. It does help you in your role as an elected official for some things, but it's not a good tool for discussions or deliberations of pending policy matters. In 2021, the legislature amended the statute to expressly state that 4 categories of items expressly are not meetings. If you have an email, let's say that you have an email communication go out from the clerk, and it goes out to all 7 of the council members. And it says, hey, we need to have a special meeting. What's your availability for a special meeting? If all 7 of us jump on and start emailing and we copy all of our fellow council members, that doesn't become a meeting under the open meetings law because it's only a discussion of scheduling or availability, okay? You can sense how that's an administrative type of thing, right? So emails, even if all the members of the body are on them, if they relate only to scheduling and availability, that's okay. If it's merely an FYI item, right, maybe you're working on some policy issue, maybe you're working on something, I thought I saw this on one of your recent agendas, you might be working on charging stations or something like that. If one council member sees an article or something, and they say, oh, this is interesting, I'd like to forward this to the rest of council, forwarding that to the other council members in an email in which all the council members are on that email, that's not a violation either. But make sure that we don't, in response to that, right, start having a discussion about the city's own policy question, right? It's just an FYI email. Even better way to deal with those issues is maybe if you see something that might be of interest to the rest of the council, you send that to the clerk or the administrator, and then they distribute that to all the council members, right? That helps insulate the council. And a lot of times the staff will include at the bottom of the email, hey, to ensure that we're complying with the open meetings law, let's make sure no one hits reply. Please do not reply all. This is just FYI, right? Other acceptable uses of email under the statute are simply posing a question to the group, but only for the actual discussion to occur at a later duly noticed meeting, right? And then maybe the mayor is the one who sees this more than most, but if the mayor, for example, gets an email from a constituent, he's not sure whether the rest of the council is copying it, but the mayor decides I should reply to this constituent and I want to copy the council just so they know. You can do that as well. Responding to an outside inquiry and just copying your fellow council members is okay as well. But in all 4 of those examples, you need to make sure that we do not, right, as a council, then start any further discussion, right? Those are all examples of where email is allowed, but in all 4 of the examples, you can see that the council is not having a discussion of the merits or substance of pending city council business. Okay, let's keep rolling. As I mentioned, the statute has a notice requirement that requires that you publish an agenda. Your staff takes care of most of these administrative details, right? As you know, the notice needs to be published 24 hours in advance. I don't know if you have a local rule for further posting of your notice. Make sure that we understand that the agenda must include agenda information where possible. So make sure that your agenda clearly describes in plain and specific terms what items are going to be discussed, considered, or acted on at your meeting so that the public has clear notice of the items that are going to be discussed or acted on at the meeting. The other nice thing about an agenda, getting out of the weeds, is to remember that the agenda is there to help frame how you're going to spend your energy and efforts for any one night, right? Perhaps to put it a little more humorously, I'm sure you have many, many things going on and many wants and needs that you need to attend to and many topics that you'd like to discuss. But the agenda is there to remind you that you don't have to or shouldn't eat the entire elephant in one sitting, right? If issues come up and you want to have substantive discussions on them, the best practice is to put them on a future agenda, right? So as I mentioned, the statute says the meeting notice, the meeting posting must include specific agenda information where possible. The courts here in Colorado have kind of further articulated what that means. Your agenda titles, therefore, should not be overly general or vague. Nor should we withhold from the agenda items that we know we want to talk about at the time we're setting the agenda. So among our 295 members at SURSA, which is about 90% of the cities and towns in the state of Colorado, there's varying practices on how they set the agenda, but they follow fairly predictable patterns. But however you set your agenda, right, you want to be deliberate in identifying all the topics and action items that we're going to have on the agenda and get them on the agenda. You want to be very circumspect about adding items the night of. I would suggest against it. I call it the empty chair principle. I know that it can happen, even with the best of intentions. We might get to a meeting and we say to ourselves, darn it, I meant to get in touch with the clerk and ask that this be added to the agenda, but I forgot to do so. So Mayor, I would like to ask that we add this item to the agenda. I would encourage you to look at that as the empty chair principle, which is we should be asking ourselves, if we were to add that item to the agenda tonight, is there a chair in the council chambers that would have been filled had someone known we were going to be discussing that issue tonight, right? And recognize, issues that may appear to us to be seemingly non-consequential or non-controversial or insignificant or administrative only, and may be very important issues to some of your constituents or citizens, right? So I would encourage you to be very hesitant in adding items to the agenda night of, right? Particularly if it's going to be a discussion that affects the rights or interests or wants and needs of the community at large. It might be that you've got something very simple and routine that requires some simple direction that evening, and it can't wait, but those situations are few and far between. It's usually better to gather those things up for the next agenda. So for that, if you're dealing with specific issues on that, I would encourage you to make sure you consult with the administrator, clerk, and attorney on what's the best practice with regard to something that might come up close in time to the meeting. But we generally encourage it from a risk management perspective to make sure that everything that you're going to discuss or act on gets on that agenda 24 hours in advance. Okay? All right, unless there are any questions on that, I'll move on. Just talk about the remedial consequences. So the statute does allow, if an individual believes that their open meetings law rights have been violated, they can bring an action against the entity. If we took action in violation of the open meetings law, well, that action could be overturned by a court, which sounds a little abstract, but it can be difficult. For example, if we make a decision that affects the rights of third parties and they begin to rely on that, well, if that action is undone by some later finding of a court, then we could be in a bit of a pickle, right? So that's another reason to be conservative. The statute does allow a prevailing party to recover their attorney's fees. It allows the city, when it's defending those cases, to only recover attorney's fees if the court finds that the action that was brought was frivolous or vexatious. So it's a little bit of an unbalanced attorney's fee provision, which is yet another reason to remember conservatism around this issue. Probably the main takeaway in terms of harm, though I am a lawyer and we talk about legal remedies and so on, one of the biggest practical consequences to open meetings problems is the loss of community faith and trust, right, in how you do your work. And if we have a problem in that area, it can be hard to regain that trust. So that's why I encourage you to make sure we're conservative and embrace the spirit and intent as well as the letter of the Colorado Open Meetings Law. All right. Sometimes we get to ask the question, well, even with the best intentions, the rules are complicated or things are moving quickly or we make a misstep somehow. Can we actually cure a misstep? Can we cure a violation of the Open Meetings Law? And this is an area that our appellate courts have weighed in on recently. I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. I'm just going to say that from a technical legal perspective, it is possible to cure a violation of the Open Meetings Law by a subsequent meeting, by kind of doing over whatever the matter was at a subsequent meeting where you have your full discussion and opportunity for public input at a meeting that does comply with the Open Meetings Law, but that doesn't erase the potential legal risk of remedies for the earlier violation. And of course, you still have that public trust issue. And of course, the simple takeaway, again, is it's better to look to prevention. Ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and prevention means following the OML. So the cure concept is really a last resort for your attorneys in looking at a potential situation where we had a misstep. The much better course is to make sure going in, right, that we're complying with all the requirements of the Open Meetings Law. Okay. All right. Rubber stamping. I just want to get on your radar a risk dynamic of this issue around the openness clause. As I said in my very first slide, the public policy intent behind the Open Meetings Law is to give your constituents, your citizens, a window into the formation of public policy. Even if it didn't give rise to potential legal liability, it can be frustrating or disappointing or concerning to citizens if they sense that meetings are mere rubber stamp, right? The way it translates into a legal issue is if in the face of an alleged open meetings violation, a court finds that what was happening at the regular meeting was a mere rubber stamping of decisions that had been reached by some parallel process outside of the meeting, then in all likelihood the courts will find a violation, right? Remember also that you may have situations where you discuss and deliberate on an issue at a couple of sessions. You might have one or two work sessions on an issue, then might have a regular meeting, and then you're finally ready to vote on an issue. We encourage that you make sure you have that final round of open, on-the-record deliberations with each other as a council before you take final action, right? That's really that magic moment where in your leadership capacity, your constituents get to hear your reasons for why you're going to vote the way you're going to vote. They get to hear the give and take that you engage in, right? So well as council members working to do the good work of the community on their behalf. So publicly deliberate on issues in a meaningful way. I guess the practices that go along with that is make sure as a council we commit, right, to giving each member of council the opportunity to share their perspective, that even if we disagree on policy issues, we're agreeing to respectfully disagree, that each member feels like no matter how different their view is from another member, that the council deliberation is a safe space, because that's how you get the value of each person's perspective, is that each member knows they have equal standing as any other member to raise their views and concerns on an issue and know that the others are actively listening, even if we ultimately agree to disagree or even if the vote doesn't necessarily go our way, right? Okay. This is more of an administrative piece, but just so you know, this part of the open meeting law, it does require that minutes be taken at any meeting where you take any kind of action. There's an open question of whether minutes or summaries of work sessions need to be taken. That's more an issue of local practice. Verbatim minutes are not required in Colorado. They can, if desired, be summary minutes or action minutes, but just we would encourage you to make sure as a council you confirm with your staff what your expectations are around minutes, right? So that they're consistent with the approach that the entity has, right? And the minutes obviously are an open record. Okay. Let's talk about executive sessions. The Colorado Open Meetings Law allows you to have executive sessions as a city council, but only for a limited number of statutorily authorized topics, and only after following very specific procedures under the Open Meetings Law. This slide is not a full list of the authorized topics under state statute, but it's the topics that we most commonly see our members convening executive sessions to discuss. And also, these are just the phrases. This is not the full language of the statute. But for example, the statute does allow, after you follow the proper procedures, the council to convene an executive session for legal advice on specific legal questions, right? It does allow you to have an executive session for certain matters subject to negotiation, but only for the purposes of determining strategy, instructing negotiators, and determining positions, right? And then I've listed a couple more here as well, okay? Executive sessions may only be called at a regular or special meeting, right? So you're going to have an agenda for a regular or special meeting. We suggest, encourage, recommend that if you're going to have an executive session, you know that in advance, then we're putting the executive session on the agenda, right? So if we know that we're expecting an executive session, we put on the agenda, on the published agenda that's posted in advance of the meeting. Okay. The procedures for going into executive session are very specific. I watched a little bit of one of your meetings where you convene an executive session. I'm going to go to the bottom of the slide. The most practical thing from your point of view as the council is to use a script. I think, Mayor, you probably have a script. Is that right, that you use?
Yes.
Yes. That's probably, it sounded like it was based on a SURSA sample template that we drafted and published many years ago for our members to use and tailor to their own needs. But you use a script or a checklist. Remember that the statute requires basically 3 components before you go into executive session. And it's that you publicly announce the topic of the proposed executive session, that you state the specific statutory citation that would authorize the session. That's where you got to read that right? What statute authorizes the executive session. Then you have to go on and identify the particular subject matter to be discussed in executive session in as much detail as possible without compromising the purpose for which the executive session is authorized. That's why a script is nice. And there, clerk, most of these issues, that last piece, you can probably, it's a good tool, you check in with your attorney perhaps in advance of the meeting, and the clerk or administrator, and say, okay, this is the announcement. Have we covered the subject matter, the particular subject matter sufficiently to make sure people know in as much detail as possible what the purpose of the discussion is, but at the same time without compromising the purpose of the session. Right?
We have our attorney draft that up and write, and that we follow it.
Right. Here's my practical risk management tool. Is it when we're going through that exercise in real time at the meeting, if something doesn't feel right, I would encourage any member of council, if it didn't sound, raise our hand and say, Mayor, did we get everything right there? Because we want to get it right the first time. It's hard to get a do-over, right? If we make a misstep before the executive session, we go into executive session, then the die is already cast, right? So if somebody says, oh, did we get that language just right, we slow it down and make sure we've got that correct, okay? All right, and then when you're in executive session, just a couple of things to remember. It's our duty to self-police. We need to stay on topic and make sure that our discussions in executive session are confined solely to the authorized topic that was announced and voted upon, right? We can't mix and match topics and include a topic that was not part of the motion and announcement for the executive session, right? Make sure we understand that in executive session, formal action may be taking no votes, straw polls, no informal action of any type, right? Make sure that we're also honoring fiduciary responsibility to protect the confidential information of the city, right? And as a practical tool, and I would encourage, whether it's the mayor or the meeting discussion, maybe as an example here in an executive session, talking about a matter subject to negotiation, I would encourage use of this tool before you break from executive session and then reconvene in the open session. And you ask yourselves, okay, of all the confidential information that we've discussed in this executive session, which confidential information, if any, leaves the room, and who's our spokesperson? And then as fiduciaries, recognize that it's each member's responsibility to protect the confidentiality of information as identified by. Remember, I think this is a good tool for helping build a public understanding, faith, trust, especially as the script that you use shows. When you're done with the executive session, make sure that there's an opportunity for anyone who has concern to raise that concern on the record. And then also perhaps consider an announcement to the public at large, and confirm, hey, we had an executive session. In my example, we had an executive session for purposes of a discussing matter that was subject to negotiation. Just want to make sure the public understands and is assured there was no straw vote, there was no voting, there was no action taken in the executive session. And in fact, with regard to the matter subject to the negotiation, be it a contract or real estate purchase or sale or something like that, before the council will take any action. And if our negotiations get traction, there will be, before any action is taken, there will be an agendized action item on an agenda and public discussion and deliberation before we take any vote. And that helps people understand that the executive session is a very limited, right, thing you're using, right, to help the interest of the city as a corporate entity. Okay? All right. So I kind of summarized a couple of rules there. In Colorado, this, the executive, just like open meeting settings, professionalism for 90 days and only for very limited purposes that your attorney can explain. But my practical takeaway in terms of claims management is in full-blown scorched earth litigation, it is possible that someone can get a hold of the executive session tape, and you don't want to have your name attached to some zinger or comment in executive session that we wish after the fact we wouldn't have done, right? So remember that dynamic as well. Okay. All right, I think I've covered this issue about recordings. Let's pivot and get out of the weeds and just talk a little bit about meetings best practices as the governing body level, because you do all of your work in a public setting, and you want to make sure that you lay the groundwork for orderly and productive public meetings, right? That give and the packet the time and attention it deserves. As I mentioned earlier, agenda setting does have a couple of different components to it. One is the open meetings law compliance purpose that you need to include specific agenda information where possible, right? But it also helps you frame your night's work, right? You want to commit as members to following and staying on the agenda during the meeting. Probably a recurring thing that we see among our members is it's correct, Mayor, that you have a public comment period?
Yes, 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, and then, someone comes up there in public comment and has a new issue that they'd like to discuss with the council, right? And it may be something that even requires some council direction or action of some type, but you've probably got practices in place to remind folks that the public comment period is your opportunity just to give us your comments as citizens. We actually don't take action, and we're not adding agenda items tonight based on public comment, right? The better practice is to allow the public during public comment their opportunity to talk to you. You can remind them that, hey, people are listening to council and staff are listening to your comments, but we typically don't have a back and forth, and we don't take action on public comment items, in part because of our agenda setting rules that we're required to live with under state law. Right? You might have an idea for council that you'd like to hear and like us to take action on tonight, but it's really something that even if it is an issue that council does want to take up, it's something that we take up later after we're able to put it on an agenda and gather information and get some staff support for that issue, right? Okay, let's move on and talk about some other stuff. Remember, in local government, particularly local government, in contrast to like the state legislature, we do pride ourselves in local government being approachable and informal, but you want to make sure you're not informal to a fault, right? Make sure that you maintain certain practices and expectations, right, around professionalism and civility. Make sure that we at the dais ourselves, right, use courtesy, tact, diplomacy in all interactions. Work to make sure that your meetings, right, don't have any, the council meetings ought not to have surprise moments or gotcha moments, right, when dealing with one another or staff. And make sure that we understand that we have we probably have this every once in a while, Mayor, you're gonna have a tough issue, emotions are running high, people have differing opinions, the room's full, right? In those situations, as you do so well, you use those leadership skills to make sure everyone knows that they're going to have an opportunity to be heard, that we're going to have a particular approach and process to this, that we at the council, no matter how much we disagree with each other, we're going to be respectful and we're not going to let discord drive our meetings or our agendas. Okay. I don't know whether you have these or not, but do you follow Robert's Rules of Order?
Try to.
Yeah. Well, remember, make sure.
Right here,
I'm sorry?
Bob's Rules of Order for.
Bob's Rules? You use Bob's Rules? Yeah. That's, Robert's Rules of Order is 400 and some odd pages long. Bob's Rules is an option for Colorado local governments, which I think more directly deals with the more common recurring issues that you have. But whatever it looks like, make sure you have a practical set of house rules that deal with common issues. How do we make motions? How do we get a second? How do we deliberate at the dais? Whatever that looks like to you as the governing body, and then be consistent in following those rules, both for yourselves and others, so that we have good habits, right? And expectations around how we conduct our meetings. Okay. Let's talk about public comment periods. Thank you, Mayor, for mentioning your practice on that. I would say that you're like most of our members. They do have a public comment period for open public comment on the agenda. I've heard varying limitations on time, but 3 minutes is the most common ground rule that I see. I would encourage you to have consistent habits and practices around the public comment period. Ask that speakers make sure they're recognized by the presiding officer when it's their time to speak. If they're in person, I can't see with the view that I have whether you have a lectern or a podium for people
Yes,
to
there's
come.
one.
Ask that they direct their comments to the council. I think some of these practices, and it's very nice to have it on your agenda to let speakers know that those are some of the guidelines, right? Because it can be very, anxiety inducing for uncomfortable. We're all insiders, and we're familiar with how these things happen, and we see each other all the time at meetings. But for that one citizen who shows up just once in a blue moon for some issue that's really got them worried or anxious, we want to make sure they'll know that we're here to listen to them, right? And that we're going to attentively listen during their 3 minutes. We're going to ask them, please direct your comments to the council. Some other dynamics you might see is people during public comment want to turn and talk to someone in the audience. Maybe in between speakers, you can just may recalibrate that by reminding folks, hey, this is your opportunity to speak to us as the council. This is the meeting of the governing body. So, please direct your comments to us relating to items of city interest that you'd like us to talk about. Okay. Consider whether you have rules around people pooling time. I don't know if you've ever had this issue, but we see it once in a while. Sometimes you'll have an issue and during public comment, someone will appear and say, well, I know I've got 3 minutes, Mayor, so thank you for that, but I'm actually here to speak on my own behalf and 3 of my neighbors, so could you give me 12 minutes, right? And I'm not asking for an answer now, but just think about what practical rules look like around those kinds of issues so that you're prepared to consistently deal with little things that come up like that during public comment, right? Okay. Let's see. Regarding public comment periods, recognize that the courts have recognized that public comment period is a period for public feedback and petitioning their government, and that's protected First Amendment speech, right? So you don't want to be regulating the public comment period based upon the content or viewpoint that's being expressed by the speaker. At the margins, there are just a few very small or narrow areas where you can regulate content, but to keep it simple, that would have to be content that is essentially inciting a riot or is sexually charged with language, not obscenity in and of itself. It's got to be, sexually charged obscenity to be beyond the bounds of the First Amendment. So have to be careful, that elected appointed officials can sometimes be on the receiving end with less than courteous comments during public comment, but you just want to have a thick skin to that, right? And make sure that we recognize, hey, this is where we give people the opportunity to speak their mind, and they might say some things we don't like, but if it's their First Amendment viewpoint, then they're allowed to express that viewpoint. And frankly, when their 3 minutes are up, we just tell them thank you for your comments, and we continue on from there, right? If it's sometimes, it can be very disheartening to be on the receiving end of a personal attack. We can certainly ask people not to direct a personal attack at a council member or staff, but that's First Amendment protected speech as well. In fact, in our 10th Circuit, we've had the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals say in a case out of New Mexico that a broad rule that simply prohibits personal attacks would be overbroad from a First Amendment perspective. So we just need to recognize that part of that thick skin of being a public official is we're going to have to sometimes tolerate, right, what we might believe is a falsehood, a personal attack, profane, or offensive speech. Okay. Let's see, if you're having disruptions and things are truly getting out of hand, our best suggestion for risk management practice is simply to take a break, take a short recess. You can then come back, see if we can recalibrate and ask everyone to be professional and civil, and then we get back on cue with proceeding with the meeting. Okay? All right. Unless there are any questions on that, I'll just keep moving. I think I mentioned most of these things, but this is more handling the issues that we may have among the council itself with respect to meeting conduct. Again, maintain a degree of formality, decide what our rules are on how we speak to each other by name, titles, a council member X, council member Y. Does each council member internally as well get recognized by the mayor before speaking? And do we have policies for how our deliberations flow? I mentioned a recess, right, and then a couple other points on this slide. All right, I'm going to pivot now and talk about public records, some issues for you all. And what we're talking about here is the Colorado Open Records Act, which does intersect with some of the things that you do as elected officials quite often. Though handling issues under the Colorado Open Records Act is left to your administrative staff. Let me just give you a real quick, very, very broad summary of the basic concepts behind the Colorado Open Records Act. It basically says that all public records shall be open for inspection by persons at reasonable times, okay? Excepting where the state law says that a record is not subject to public inspection, either on a mandatory basis or a discretionary basis. So in other words, if some record meets the definition of public record in the statute, it has to be disclosed in response to a records request unless there's an exception in CORA or in another law that prohibits the disclosure. Okay? The definition of public records under the statute is broad. A public record under Colorado state law is all writings that are made, maintained, or kept by the city for use in the exercise of functions required or authorized by law or administrative rule, or that involve the receipt or expenditure of public funds. That's kind of a legalistic way of saying that writings, public records that are made, maintained, or kept for performance of your duties, exercise of your functions, or that involve public funds are, as a starting point, going to be considered public records subject to disclosure. Okay? As I mentioned, a lot of this is administrative. You have the law requires that you designate an official records custodian. That's quite often the city or town clerk. There are response deadlines when your custodian receives a records request. The presumptive response time under Colorado law for responding to a record request is 3 working days. That can be extended for extenuating circumstances as defined by the statute. This is a flow chart that I'm just going to skip over, other than to say it really kind of shows the lifespan of a core request and a thought process about best practices for receiving a request, then getting it into the hands of the custodian, then gathering up the records that might be responsive to the request, doing a review to see whether there are any exemptions that require certain portions or entirety of records to be withheld, and then a further evaluation of whether there are any records for which the entity might, under the permissive authority, decide that a record might be withheld, and then we close out the request. Okay. The Colorado Open Records Act distinguishes between records that must be released, records that are not public records, okay, so they would not be subject to the disclosure provisions of the statute, and then records that may be withheld at the custodian's discretion. And I've given you examples as well, okay? And then there are records that might be required to be kept confidential by other laws, okay? I mentioned earlier, the definition of public records is very broad. It does include express language that says the correspondence of elected officials, that's you all, the correspondence of elected officials that relates to their duties or to public funds is a matter of public record. Okay? So that's the starting point, right? People ask are the emails that I send and receive as an elected official, are they subject to public disclosure? And the answer is yes, that's the starting point, unless there's some provision of the state law that says they're either not a public record or they're not subject to disclosure. Okay, so the takeaway there is to make sure that you're very circumspect. Email communications are a useful tool, but you want to be circumspect in your use of email and other means of electronic communication, because those electronic communications, if they relate to your role as a public official, your duties as a public official or in public funds, they could be subject to disclosure. Right? The practical thing is you might be just writing an email solely to the city administrator and be thinking, well, my only audience for this email is the administrator, but under the Colorado Open Records law, somewhere down the road, that records request might become subject to, it might be read by someone you never had in mind when you first wrote that email. So I have a practical risk management takeaway, which is in your role as a public official, wearing your public official hat, don't say in an email or text or any other form of electronic communication anything that you wouldn't want to say in a public meeting, or read in the newspaper, or in my world, have read back to you in a deposition. Okay. Let's see. Remember, I do sometimes get the question, well, does Cora, if I as a public official or elected or appointed official, if I write an email on my home personal computer, is that subject to Cora? Right? Recognize that the Cora rules about what's subject to disclosure and what is not, they are content driven. They are not device driven, right? So what matters is, what does the communication say? Does the communication relate to the discharge of your duties as a public official? Does it relate to your role as a public official? Does it concern public funds, city business, etc.? If that's the case, then that correspondence is a public record that can be subject to disclosure under the open records law, it does not matter that it was prepared on a personal device, okay? There's still some legal debate and litigation going on around the margins about how those rules apply, but just remember that the rules are content and purpose driven, not device driven, okay? If you go back to the handout that I sent down to Gina, that's an additional resource for you that helps explain some of these rules, okay? I'm just going to broaden the lens out before we finish and just make some best practices suggestions for you all at the governing body level. Right? Again, assume that correspondence relating to city business is a public record subject to disclosure, and therefore be circumspect. Do you all, Mayor, Council, do you have city-issued email addresses?
Yes.
Yeah, but I would encourage that you use those to perform your duties as a public official, right? I don't know, you have some members that are new to the council, but you know how it is, particularly in small communities, but we see this in big communities as well. Your friend or constituent, you know, who knows your personal email address from before you were on council, right? Now that you're on council, they're going to email you at your personal email address. Well, recognize you have every right to ask them, hey, you know, that's my personal email address for just my friends and family and personal items. If you want to talk to me or communicate with me as an elected official, I would ask you to email me at this email address. That's my city issued email address, right? That helps, right, get the email into the city system. It helps the staff people who have to deal with records requests more easily find and locate records that may be responsive to a request, right? And so that's a good thing, okay? The same thing with respect to your personal social media accounts. Now that you're a public official, if you have folks on social media that now know that, you can also remind them that if you want your personal social media account to remain personal, remind people that it's solely your personal account. But we got to walk the walk if that's what we want as well. Make sure then that you don't use your personal social media account in a way that becomes an official account. Okay, so that's a deep topic that we do a separate training on, but just be cognizant of that issue as well. It's fairly common that there will be core requests for correspondence of elected officials. So just remember that piece. Make sure that you don't mix personal and official communications. Makes it a lot harder for your staff if they have to sort that stuff out and redact the personal stuff that's not subject from disclosure from the public official capacity stuff that is. Make sure that if there's ever a records request, most people, you have a nice system in place. I think through the website, people can find your open records forms. But if you ever, for some reason, end up as an individual council member or as a group of council members receiving an email directly to you that's a core request, send that over to your custodian, get that plugged into the system, right? So that they can take care of that on your behalf. And make sure we understand that once a record request is received, that we need to preserve, not delete potentially responsive requests. Instead, we need to gather up the information that's potentially responsive and then let our staff, our administrator, clerk, and attorney, sort out the issues of what needs to be provided, what must be withheld, if anything, and what may be withheld if that's a course that the city decides to pursue. And you can always consult with the custodian. If it relates to your own individual correspondence, a little provision of the statute provides that the custodian will consult with you to confirm what the expectations intent was around individual pieces of public official correspondence. Okay? And you don't have to be the custodian of public records, but recognize that you could be if there's a record that you created that isn't anywhere in the system. So that's another reason we encourage you to use your assigned devices and your assigned email addresses so that those records can be in the system and be subjected to the records retention policies of the city. Okay? So with that, I've actually reached the end of my prepared materials for you all. I'm happy to take any questions if you have any at this point in time, but if not, I just wanted to point out that the remaining couple of slides In the slide deck that Gina can make available to you are some additional web addresses, resources for you as elected officials available through the SOSA website. And you can find those. I hope those are helpful to you. And I want to thank you all for the opportunity to present to you all this evening. We do get out and travel around the state. I hope you have the opportunity to come your way sometime in the coming months. So if we do that, we're happy to provide additional trainings or just meet with you all, whichever you prefer. Our member support resources are there for you to use as much or as little as you'd like as an organization. Most of our services are at no additional cost to our members, so we encourage you to take advantage of whatever source of services you think would be a benefit to you as an organization. So, with that, Mayor, Council, thank you so much for having me. Staff, thank you for the invitation. I hope this has been helpful to you all.
Well, thank you very much. And just a reminder, any questions can go directly to Gina, city clerk at walsenburg.org, and she'll forward them to you and then get an answer that way and get back to everybody.
Can I ask a question now, or do I have to email it? I have a question for him.
Would you email it, please? We got a meeting to do. If I open up for one, I'm gonna open up for everybody. It's better if I don't. Would you mind emailing it to Gina?
I mean, that's what you're telling me I have to do. That's what I have to do.
It's just, this wasn't set up for quick answers and questions because of our ensuing meeting coming up right now. We're already past 6 o'clock. If it was just one, I would, but.
Said Gina, city admin,
Oh, no, it's a city clerk
city clerk. Thank you.
at Walsenburg.org. And then I'll get answers to all the questions. We can make it an ongoing. We have this training again tomorrow. The slide will be made available, and of course the recording as well. So if you have any additional questions.
There'll be more time on the next two sessions.
Could we just possibly get his email and email him the questions directly? Is that
Well,
possible?
He's asked that they go through me, so he's not inundated. But I.
No, we deal with our designated representative of our member, so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks all. Take care. Have a good evening.
You too. Anybody need a break before we start the regular meeting? We good? 5 minutes.
Go ahead, I can move in.
Everybody's good, we'll go.
I just wanted to have your public card. We're not here to
You don't get the baby.
Yeah, all this stuff go and hang out outside.
Okay, we're gonna move on to city council minutes approval. We have an enclosure that approved, entertaining a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the city council minutes from 2, 3, and 6. City council regular meeting minutes.
I got a motion by Don Martinez,
Second.
second by Pam Breitweiser. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Administration staff reports. I don't believe anybody's here from the police. The
Yes.
chief's online,
Mhm.
and he has an enclosure. Anything to add, chief?
Yeah, Chief.
I've seen his name up there somewhere.
Probably
Chief, you wanna raise your hand?
Right somewhere.
Oh, he is not here now. And I did see Trayvon, but I don't see him now. Oh, there he is.
No? Okay, well, he has a report. Is there any questions from council of the chief's report?
I'm here, if Chief is not here.
Okay, thank you. Anything to add? Your report's good?
As far as I know, it's good. I wasn't able to fully take a look at it before you sent it in, but you guys should have everything in front of you if you have questions on here.
Okay, seeing then we'll move on to the city attorney, Mr. Hyatt. Has everything in closure? Any questions or concerns? No, we'll move on to public works. Mr. Harriman has an enclosure. Any questions or concerns?
Just there's a lot of things in there about retirement, and I just want to make sure that with the departure administrator and about the pretty good job that, you know, his recommendations are taken into consideration and that there's a lot of cost discounts assuming and stuff, so.
Okay, we've been,
He just has a lot of knowledge and he put a lot of suggestions.
we've been talking to administration. We're supposed to pretty well have that knowledge, make sure we're treated down the line that we can take care of things here in the future. So we're working towards that goal. Anybody else on public works? Next one is Mr. Harriman put in his retirement notice at the end of May.
Yes, sir, sure.
He's in the
Well, I can help myself, it's fine, it's fine.
It's retiring. City administrators, Jeff, do you have anything to add?
Hang on, he's gonna grab, see if they still.
Oh, okay. Sounds like he's saying no to me. We can come back to him. Mr. Pacheco, oh, he's gone too. Oh, there he is. Hello there. David, you got anything to say on your report or your retirement?
Not much.
No, we're working towards a substitute plan where there's probably no disruption. As good as we can.
Yeah. So we went through a transmission meeting with Mr. Pacheco. We came up with arrangements within the department for them to step up and do more of the paperwork. Just for further information, in the 42 years that I've served the city of Walsenburg, this is the first time that everybody in the water treatment plant have certifications, which is awesome. So if there are any questions, it was in my report with the transition of people and what they're gonna step up and do. And once we decide that, we're closing out everything I had in open. As you know, 2 years ago, when you asked me to come back and work here, we had all the deficiencies. As of today, we have no deficiencies. They're all in process. The only thing pending is the Dagger Lake spillway, which is in process, and Train B. But we know that Train B will be off of that once we get it completed by July 31st.
Yeah, they're in the works anyway.
Yeah, everything's in the works. So there shouldn't be anything. So as of the 29th of this month, hopefully close out everything that was in my name. And everything that comes up from May 1st on will be in other department members' names. And they will report directly to Mr. Pacheco.
Have we determined a predecessor? Is it too early? Or are we gonna take a little time to figure this out?
Well,
Let's.
if you look at, we kind of decided.
No, you didn't.
But, so each.
I didn't read your whole report. It's
All right,
too long.
each member of the department will be responsible for their department. So the water treatment plant will be responsible for all their correspondence to Mr. Pacheco. The wastewater treatment plant, water and sewer, Milton, the team chose Milton Perez to be in charge. We didn't come up with a name for him, and if you read that, these guys feel that they could function without a director, which is fine. Transferring the paperwork is going to be the issue, which we have 30 days to train and update them. And so we actually already started that. So all correspondence, they have been told to report to Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Pacheco was on the meeting, everybody in the department was there. This is my true feelings. The city has built the department strong enough that they don't need a leader. I'm telling you that. So if you happen to arrive at a job site, you probably won't know the leaders because this department works that fine together. And I believe Mr. Pacheco can answer some of the questions. He was in the meeting. The team is very, very tight, and they discuss. And the good thing about this team is there's a lot of competition going on right now, which is nice. Everybody's fighting to get their certifications, which is nice. But on the bad side of that, we gotta pay these people for their certifications. So everybody in water and sewer is now certified legal. First time in 40 years that I've been here, everybody's had their certifications. So if there's any questions that need to be directed, we can direct them to the department now. Everybody's open. Mr. Pacheco's open. He was in the meeting. He can give you his gist on what went on in the meeting, but I believe the team decided what they wanted to do. And I believe that is the proper thing to do at this point. We don't, as I said in the meeting, I do not want to put any one of them in a position to fail. And if we do put them in a position to fail, that's our fault, and we should not do that. So, we as a group, as a team, all decided, it's in my report, if you want me to add more to it, I can, but as of right now, that's the way we're gonna function for the next 30 days.
And we're gonna give them some help, with the paperwork too, as far as administratively.
Affirmative.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got, I think, Mr. Pacheco and the team and all of us, I think we have a good plan.
Okay.
Whether it's gonna work or not, I can't tell you, but I believe it will. I don't think we're gonna leave anybody hanging. I mean,
Because we still have to deal with the water engineer, water attorney, all that stuff.
Affirmative.
Dam safety, you know it.
yeah, so we have a contact list, we have a vendor list submitted already, who our vendors are for what supplies.
Yeah.
We have our dam inspectors, who needs contact at the Colorado Division of Water Resources in reference to water. So we have a good contact list going, and within this next month, everybody will be introduced to those people, because as you know, we're in a water situation right now.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. People gotta realize how hard it is. We have a lot of water rights, but it takes a lot to control head gates, keep these lakes full, keep the leaks patched. We got 13 miles of line coming from Levita down to here, and there's a lot to it. Plus all the reporting the state requires, and you got dam safety. Matt Wells, you got a bunch of them. I go to those meetings.
And it's just gonna take time for those guys to function in that field. As you know, you've been here for 2 years meeting with water attorneys.
Yeah.
It takes a while to learn where things are.
I'm very happy that we're gonna help with the paperwork part, because I know as guys out in the field, they don't like that part.
Yeah.
You know, my guys don't like paperwork. I can't make them.
I think we worked it out.
Yeah,
with
cool.
So, and then, so the augmentations now, as of this month, will be monthly. The guys have been coached up that those augmentation readings need to be to the engineer's office by the 10th of each month. That has changed
The
as
releases,
of this month, this year.
how about the releases? Are they gonna be on
They're gonna be on a monthly basis now.
20th of every month or something?
Yeah, we're gonna try to do it like this one. This month is 7 days. We started today. We need to get rid of it. And then next month, it'll be whatever. It won't be 27 next week, next month. We're just catching up for the quarter.
Oh, okay, it won't be as many days next
No,
time.
no,
Yeah.
it'll be smaller in range.
Okay,
You good? Good.
thank you. Go ahead, Rob.
First of all, thank you very much for your service. I saw you out there working hard, and I appreciate that. The SOP.
Which ones you want? That's the key. So if you relate with Carmen, Laura, and Corey, I can't remember when I was under contract, a Cora request for SOPs. They were given to Rick Colander. I have some, the SOPs for the water treatment plant. SOP, if you want to go copy them, you can do that. The SOPs for disaster or incident, we just worked on about a week ago. I haven't put it all together. The SOP from the transmission line was Cora reported to Carmen Laura, so that's on record here. I don't know which other ones you want. They were all given to Coriander, so where he put them, I have no idea.
You put everything on the G drive.
So we have the ones that we had from 2002 to 2016, but they haven't been updated since then. The old ones are still on file on paper.
We just want to make sure we can
You got him. So we're going, actually, we're rehearsing the transmission lines right now.
And your crew's all versed in how to do all that, right?
The only thing they haven't been versed in is pumping.
Oh, well, we got to pump back to me.
So we anticipate that we're gonna set that up this month and go through the procedure on pumping.
And the way it's going, it could help us.
And, I don't know how I would put together an operational procedure for pumping. Unless you want one, I can, but,
Hook up the pump to the pipe.
you hook up the pump, the pipe, and the reservoir, turn it on, and open the valve, that's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Good?
I personally want to thank you for coming on board and getting things straightened out here.
Thanks, it was
People don't
fun.
realize the condition the city was in.
Actually, it was fun to take on this challenge and see some completions to it. I like to see. This last one, took it out of here.
But I have just one question for you. Like safety training and all that stuff, does each department be able to?
So I've been here about 4.5 years. I guess it's kind of apropos that I'm speaking after him because I have nothing but a positive message to share. I want to thank all of you for standing up, listening to this, listening to our complaints, being yelled at, being cussed at. You don't deserve it. No one deserves it. This community doesn't deserve that element. We don't like it. We don't endorse it. And I'm sure sorry that, you have to sit and endure it. I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank the law enforcement. I want to thank the chief of police, the city administrator. You worked us through this water mess. Thank you, Mr. Haberman.
God.
There's a lot of positive things going on here, and we need to hear about the positive. There's no room for this. We don't need it. We have the Fifth Amendment. We can say whatever needs to be said. We need to be respectful. We're not all going to agree. I certainly don't agree with that. So let's all try and be a positive influence. Let's talk to our police. Let's give them support, and let's keep, the council has a horrible job trying to do things straight. None of you were here when these problems were actually born, so you still have to take care of fixing them up. Let's work together. Thanks, a better community.
Could you repeat
Thank you,
his
sir.
name again, please? Rick Epstein,
Thank you. Next.
Edwin Hockworth,
Hi, I'm Edwin. I want to repeat what Rick just said. I'm not long in this town. It's about 10 months now. I'm a business owner in town, try to do what I think is good for this town and for the many people in this town, many beautiful people in this town. So I want to also thank you all for what you're doing because it's not easy. And I know it's not easy. But here you are, listening to us and doing the best that you can. I believe that. So keep doing what you're doing. And I just want to ask you all, please let me know what we can do to help you. Because we have a beautiful community, and that's why we're here. We're here for the community. Our community is also the addicted people and the people that are homeless. That's why we're also here. That's my focus. So also there, if there's anything that we can do to help you with this community, then please reach out. And if there's anything that I need you to do, I will also reach out to you guys and ask for your help, because that's why I believe you guys is to help. So I respect all of you and I thank all of you.
Thank you very much. Next.
next we have Jenna Fox.
Hi. Walsenburg is home to a wide variety of organizations dedicated to promoting and enhancing the community. These groups include those focused on downtown revitalization, the Main Street Program, the Tourism Board, and the Chamber of Commerce. Efforts to support the youth are evident through SCCY, 4-H, and cyber training. While other groups such as the URA, the Library, the Communications Coalition also contribute significantly. Many more volunteer-led entities work to make Walsenburg a better place for all of us. Appreciation is extended to the City Council, the Mayor, the Chief, and all of the city employees. All the dedication, energy, and commitment to service play a vital role in the community's progress. All your ongoing efforts deserve recognition and gratitude. So many people in this community benefit from all these services, and the real Good Citizen Group wants to express our gratitude for the positive effects that make our town a better place, and one that hopefully continues to make progress towards a positive change. My hope is that the City Council will always act in the best interest of the citizens of Walsenburg. It is important that your decision-making process remains free from undue influence by individuals whose actions are destructive and whose words or behavior promote hate, anger, or negativity. The well-being of the community should be at the heart of every decision, ensuring that Walsenburg continues to thrive as it works towards a welcoming and positive place for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Lakota Connell?
Thank you for your time. Thank you. I'm here because Walsenburg is facing a serious and expensive problem inside its police department, one that is draining our budget, eroding public trust, and putting the city at financial risk. We are a small town, but the police department is roughly $800,000 over budget, and part of that is because we were originally supposed to have 6 officers, but instead we now have 15. For a city our size, that's far beyond what is typical. Many communities follow a general guideline of 1 officer per 1,000 residents. By that standard, we have far more officers than our population can justify. No city can absorb this without consequences. We must not use our police as a revenue source because it historically has never been ethical. This is bad for business, affects residents and tourism alike, and has always been less cost effective. Residents have raised serious concerns about the conduct of the lieutenant and the decisions made by the police. Community members have reported incidents involving including allegations of assault and a shooting. Yet the chief of police allowed this officer to return to duty before investigations were completed. That exposes the city to lawsuits, settlements, and higher insurance costs.
Let that guy back.
From the city budget you oversee. Residents have also experienced resistance when exercising their constitutional right to report police activity and even their right to record public meetings. Citizens have every legal right to document what their government is doing, yet those rights have been repeatedly infringed. When transparency is resisted, whether on the street or in this room, it increases likelihood of legal challenges, and again, the city pays the price. Another pattern has emerged, officers citing both parties and incidents, including victims, instead of doing proper investigative work when they're treated by defenders, which causes real harm. This surge is reporting and creates more administrative and court costs. That is not effective policing. That is a shortcut that hurts people and drains resources. And let me be absolutely clear. We do not want a police force that responds with violence first and asks questions later. Not here, not anywhere. We will not tolerate conduct from our own police department that resembles the heavy-handed behavior people criticize in federal agencies like ICE. These are not isolated issues. They reflect leadership that is not enforcing standards, not controlling spending, and not protecting the city from liability. The officials and city administrator, this is your responsibility to address those that oversee city operations and must ensure departments follow the law. And protect the city from financial harm. You have the authority and the obligation to provide oversight to control the budget. You can require audits and investigations in compliance with state law. You can demand transparency, and when leadership fails, you can act. That is why I'm urging you to take decisive action. In my view, the lieutenant involved in these incidents should no longer serve in this department, and the chief who allowed him back before investigations were complete and who has allowed pattern of misconduct, overspending, and harmful practices to continue has shown judgment that puts the city at risk. Walsenburg deserves a police department that follows the law, respects constitutional rights, stays within budget, and protects the community rather than than exposing it to unnecessary liability. Accountability is not anti-police, it is pro-community, pro-safety, and pro-fiscal responsibility. It doesn't matter if you get the bad guy, if you don't arrest them right. Every day it continues, it costs the city more money.
Council, I don't know what to say with 3 minutes. We've got to learn how to color in the line. That's what part of that training is. You only have certain authority, and that's set by those constitutional principles of due process, equal protection. What are the state interests? What is your statutory authority? And when you set a policy, most important, what is the legitimate government interest that serves? If it doesn't serve a government interest, you should not be doing it. Now, when you're seeing things like this, you see all these people upset. These people are upset. They have rights. They feel that their rights have been infringed upon. It's inconvenient, but you've got to allow it. Now, I'm not going to get into what's going on with the police department. That was like rushed and, there's some questions and people are upset with some things. And a lot of people feel that now you have the same police department that was corrupt and was using excessive force that they had before. That's what a lot of people believe. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Where's
Whether
jerks
there's
now working
legitimate
there?
reasons to trespass people, I don't know. Whether some of these other incidents, I don't know. But what happened last week at your last meeting for the police to escort somebody out of this room on an administrative order is, in my opinion, plain ridiculous. And I'm
Administrative
asking
Nazi
you
shit.
to remove that from your policy. Now, what happens everywhere else is a lawsuit. That's up to administration and to that. But what happens in these meetings, I'm asking you to remove that rule. I mean, you would have arrested me before I was mayor because I used to come in here and film you every meeting.
Yeah.
Rosella, Willem?
Good job.
Could you repeat that last name, please?
It's Ullum, U-L-L-O-M.
Hello, good evening, city council members. My name is Rosella Ullum, and I am here today to talk to the city I'm here to talk about the city being more accessible to disabled folks. I've been living in Waterville County my whole life, and I've spent a lot of time in the city. I moved to Walsenburg in the summer of '24 and love the time I've spent here. Recently, I've become disabled and spend most of my time in this chair. I try to go out to lots of events and participate in this community as much as I can. I want to go to parks, get around my block, and go out without wondering if I can actually where I want to go. Right now, it is impossible to leave my house without having somebody to help me get around cracks, bumps, disintegrating sidewalks, and holes that are hard to get over. I would like to understand the city's plan to fix this accessibility issue to help people with manual wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs, strollers, walkers, canes, etc. to get around the city. I also would like to point out that I agree with Lakota on what she said. I personally have very little trust in the police force. My mother is in first response, and I am constantly in fear of her life every single day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Next.
Carmen Lara?
Carmen Lara, L-A-R-A. A lot of good things have been said here this evening. I really wish I had time to do that. It's very difficult to be positive when you see all the bad that's going on. And you see very little bit being done about it. I know we're in money troubles and all of that, but the city council needs to find a way to help its citizens. We need help. I mean, the water, the plumbing, everything is bad. And you need to find out how to fix it. You know, do a piece of, like a square or whatever to fix water lines or that. I know Mr. Galusha and others are working on sidewalks, but do we have the money right now? We need to find a way to fix the bad problems. Anyway, so, by the way, I only received 2 SOPs, regarding David Harriman, and they weren't even new SOPs, so just to say that too. So I have a complaint from a citizen today regarding the police department. There was an incident up, on the east side of town, and that is a very narrow street there. The person was trying to get to her house, came up from the west side going east up the street. Was yelled at by an officer, and I already spoke to that officer or someone in charge, and said that, because the person said that they were very rude to her, very harassing her. She was just trying to get home. And so she was told that that's a one-way street. It's not a one-way street, never has been. I'm talking about Riverside Drive. So he was going to investigate. He swears that there were signs up saying it was at one time and somebody took them down. So, you know, there needs to be policy, and there is, but it needs to be followed. You know, and this woman's an elderly woman just trying to get home. Anyway, Mr. Mayor, you have that meter for the RV park. I was a witness today too when they came and changed it out of your name to supposedly the golf course. You can't do that. I mean, you're supposed to move the meter to where it's inside the golf course, not at your personal property. The hospital, did the hospital now renege on its agreement to purchase the, youth camp over there? And I was also going to say regarding the police department, I understand Mr. Benally is out on training again. Isn't that supposed to come to council for approval? They're at training all the time, spending lots of money. He's going to be gone a week. How much is that going to cost?
Misappropriation of money.
Jim Stone, is that correct? STON,
I would say correct,
thank you.
but that's not my name.
Oh, is it?
No, that's not my name. My name is Joshua Lloyd. And I would like to say I have some positive things to say about the town. Unfortunately, the meeting on the 7th, I was trespassed for filming on a public sidewalk. I'm pretty sure you learned from the meeting tonight that it's a violation of my First Amendment right, is it not? And then I got bullied to give up my name, which is a violation of my Fourth Amendment right. My 14th Amendment was also violated. Why? I would say that the excuse would be Pacheco over here, but I could see that the chief threw him underneath the bus. And I've seen the chief throw him underneath the bus many times, and that's maybe why he's leaving. Sir, I would like to say, sorry to see you go. Sorry that you got thrown underneath the bus by the chief many, many times. And it has brought issues to your town. Because not only do I have a lawsuit at this point in time, which I was kind of hoping to see Mr. Benally sitting in his chair. That's why I took his chair tonight. I figured I'd sit in his chair. But you have a lawsuit not only with me, but with one other gentleman that was taken out of here, and not a single person except for Pam asked why. That was a violation of his First Amendment right. Pretty sure you learned that with the training. Oh, and John Denicola would like to send his regards and I hope you enjoyed the training and hope that we can have a better relationship from this point forward. Thank you very much.
Could you spell your last name for me?
Whitey.
L-L-O-Y-D, Wendy. Thank you.
Thank you.
On that, I had enough enjoyment for the night. I'm gonna go home. This is a great time.
Have a great
so much in my whole life. I gotta come back. Do, please do. Come back every meeting.
And is it Axel? I've got one,
You got one more in house?
Mr. Irizarry. What was the first name, sir?
Sorry.
What was your first name?
First name's Abby.
Abby, A-B-B,
Yeah, just like I wrote it.
I can't read your writing, it's A-B-B-I-E?
Sorry, hello. My name's Abby, and I live within my body. What I saw here last week was disgusting. How you guys threw a gentleman out of here, as your chief said, for video recording a public meeting. And I know it kind of makes you angry with all these guys that come in here, but you see what happens is that when people see a constitutional crisis, they usually show up. You know, what always just blows my mind is how city officials are so afraid of a camera. Why are you guys so afraid of the camera? Why? What do you hide? What is it? I've seen a lot of bootlicking in here. They came up here, and boy, they came up here and lavished you with all this good stuff and all that, right? Well, you know what happened here last week, that's a no violation.
Yep.
Because you guys were okay with it. Not one person here stopped it. Pam asked why, but other than that, nobody said, hey, hold on, let me protect this gentleman's civil rights, as I took an oath to do, right? And your chief is a thug. I wish he was here today, but he didn't have the gonad today, right? You know, because he thinks he can ID anyone he wants. He thinks he can just stand you there and tell you that you're being detained. And really?
Your little henchman,
You guys
huh?
live in Colorado? Were the police did they not just lose a qualified immunity just a couple of years ago? You know that when you ask for body cameras, if there's a complaint and you feel that there was misconduct, that has to be appearing, those body cams have to be in my hand within 21 days. Your city doesn't even bother to answer the email or the request.
Give that money
And
away.
if they do, tell you that you gotta come in and just look at it. You don't gotta have one, even though the law in Colorado states that you can send it to me by CD, right, to save you money, right? But it's a joke. Public request after public request, silent. The chief thinks he can do whatever he wants, no cameras are being given out, right? No matter what they do. Is that how you guys plan to run the city?
I've been waiting for months.
Months. I got people here with months. I got people calling me from Edward telling me, hey, these people just won't answer.
Screwball.
They just won't answer. And then you got this policy of no recording. Do you really think that's gonna work out for you? Huh? Do you really, really, really think that that's gonna work out for you? Because it really isn't. Because whoever backed that up, if this is a city attorney, shame on him, because he's so lame, he should be fired.
Disbarred.
I know he's good with it, because chief talked to him just before he had him thrown out, and he stayed there real silent. Now he's quitting. Yeah, it sucks working for a shitty city, doesn't it? You can't do that. And I'll be here every chance that I get. And I dare you to trespass me for my civil rights. I dare that chief to come about my civil rights for recording.
Okay, so we're on to online, Savage Broadcast, if you'd like to just give us your real name, we're happy to have you speak.
My name is Savage Broadcasting. I want to speak out about something I personally witnessed at the town of Walsenburg public meeting. Open meetings are not a courtesy. They are a legal obligation designed to ensure transparency and accountability. They exist so the public can observe, document, and understand the actions of their government. Recording public meetings is a widely recognized and important part of that transparency. During this meeting, I witnessed an individual being removed and trespassed solely for recording. I also became aware that another individual was trespassed in connection with recording as well. This raises serious concerns about whether the principles and potentially the legal requirements of open government are being upheld. Public officials serve the community. Public meetings should remain accessible, not only for attendance, but also for documentation. When individuals are removed or trespassed for recording without clear justification, it undermines public trust. I'm asking the town of Walsenburg, why do not allow recording of public meetings when it's certain individuals? Under what specific circumstances can someone be removed or trespassed for recording? How is the town ensuring compliance with Colorado open meetings law? Transparency is not optional. It's essential to maintaining public trust. I ask that this matter be addressed openly, clearly, and in a way that reassures the community that their rights are being respected.
Cynthia Cresswell?
Good evening, council. Cynthia Cresswell, you all know my name, but I'll spell it Cresswell. I've got a couple of things to address. The first thing is regarding the 3-minute limitation for citizen comments. The two gentlemen that praised the city council were not held to the 3-minute limitation. The people that are criticizing are being held to the 3-minute limitation. Yes, they are. Don't shake your head, sir. I'm happy to hear. Anyway, it's my time, sir. As you say, it's my time, okay? You always say that we should say something positive. There are a few of you that are trying your best to do the best for the city. But as far as transparency, there is a lack of transparency. There are things that are being done that are not coming before council that are supposed to be. There are decisions that are being made by people that do not have the sole authority to make that. You want to know why the people are upset. Upset because you're up there to work for us and make things better, but you're not. You've had a main priority of the golf course, but what about the children in town? The children here need something to do so that they don't get into criminal activity.
Yeah, they got fentanyl, that's it. No skate park, nothing, just jack shit.
There's many things. Yeah, thank you. There's many things that need to be done, that need to be corrected. You have ordinances and all that stuff that are there to be followed, but you're not following it. You want our trust, you want something positive, give us a reason to trust you, give us a reason to say something positive. And finishing statement, real citizens is everybody in this community, not just a designated few by a few that think they are the only real citizens. And you know who I'm talking to. Thank you very much.
Evening, folks. Well, by now you've seen the show of people were coming in with cameras to let you know what you were doing was unlawful to begin with. I'm glad you got your training. I just want to point out the fact that Mr. Hyatt knowingly allowed a trespass to be issued to the gentleman that spoke earlier from a traditional public sidewalk. The most sacred place that you can be when recording a police officer. Dan also knows that 16.3.3.11 allows us to do it. Then you got a chief of police who decided that there's some magical 25-foot rule that doesn't even exist in the state of Colorado. I think that the chief should probably get his money back on his bachelor's degree because clearly he doesn't know the law. Either that or he's just plain ignorant of the law. This is the guy that's supposed to be enforcing it. Then, to make matters worse, you guys turn around and trespass 2 people. You turn around, you falsely identify one, telling him because when a officer of the law comes up to you and asks you for ID, you're required to give it. What law is that, Chief? I'm curious. Hey, Trayvon, what law is that? Can you quote it? Because when you were asked to quote it, neither you or the chief could. There's no such thing as a 25-foot barrier, by the way. You know, Arizona tried that. Arizona, no, there isn't. Oops. And again, here we are with the interruptions and the man not saying a goddamn thing. You lazy goat. You know, it's funny because you guys don't realize, but what happened last time in the last meeting is when Mr. Pacheco and the chief of police decided to conspire to trespass him. Not only did they violate his rights on a 1983, but because it's two or more, it becomes a 1985 claim, right? So not only that, but every one of you up on that dais, including you, Mr. Mayor, are now on the hook for that same violation because you all let it happen. Every one of you. This is why I told you you should be ashamed. This is why I sat there and I filed my letter of intent for you to get to training. That should have been done in December, by the way. The fact that it got done today, better late than never, I guess. And you know, the woman's right. You allowed the people that were talking positively to speak over their time. I've been timing everybody. I've got it. I've got it screenshotted. It's amazing what things do. It's called technology. But you guys keep doing this, and you keep turning around and fighting and fighting. Why resist? You're supposed to be here to help people. You're supposed to be working for the people. And instead, you're pissing all over us, and you expect us to take it. Those signs that you got out there that your attorney is trying to claim is a non-public forum is BS. Listen, I don't give a shit about my 3 minutes being up. You guys let the other people talk over their 3 minutes. You don't let me speak. I need another 30 seconds, man. And the fact that you let somebody interrupt me in the middle of my comment means that I should get that time back as well. All I'm trying to tell you is those signs should come down because those signs are gonna be death to the city. You need to figure this out. And another thing, you guys turned around and the chief said that that's an executive order. In the state of Colorado, an executive order only lasts for 30 days, and that order was placed by Stillwell when he was there. So that means the executive order doesn't exist, your ordinance doesn't exist, it's nowhere in the ordinance for the town.
Thank you very much, John.
D. Sandoval?
Good evening, Mayor, City Administrator, City Councils, Assistant City Administrator Demae Sandoval, DEEMAES SANDOVAL. Another reason why there's always dissent is the rules aren't followed for everyone. I've seen many people come to the mic tonight, not state their name, spell it, but it goes on and on. I do want to address the positive comments and the real citizens comments. I attended the small business meeting and I spoke with you, Mayor, and we had a conversation and you know, you did tell me to my face that I was named. And I told you to your face, tell me something to be positive, and you mentioned the hospital. And I had to laugh because what is positive about the hospital? Where's the money in the hand of the city council? Everybody runs the bases and city council is still in the dugout. So when you give me something to be positive about, I will be positive about. And to you, Ms. Fox, I don't know if you know the definition of real, but I am a real. I am a real citizen. I am. And when you left that meeting that night, as you were inebriated,
Citizens comments only.
as you were inebriated.
You're not supposed to be addressed to this in here. It's supposed to be addressed simply to the city council.
And she is.
No, she's talking about me. It should be addressed to the city council.
She's allowed whatever comments she likes to make, but it's directed to us. D, I'll reinstate 15 seconds.
Huh?
Go ahead.
She's muted. Go ahead, Dee.
D,
I had gone through 2 minutes and 45 seconds, really? She threatened me and said.
You got a minute and a half left, sorry.
Thank you.
I said I was.
That she had a present for me. Others witnessed that comment, heard it, and it was a threat. Anyway, it's the same as the senior citizen comments, the real citizens, those who are there for the city. Well, I am there for the city. I've been there for 4 years straight, every meeting, every city council meeting, every URA. So when you give me something positive to talk about the city, I will do that and I will put it on my page. But until then, I am going to call it for what it is. And I will say again, if you want to be a public servant, you are in the public eye and you better have some thick skin because it doesn't work that way that we all just play nice and go along to get along. Thank you.
And Carrie Keating, if you're still online, you had your Up several times. Did you want to speak?
If not, that's the end of comments? Is that the last one?
Yes.
No. I raised my hand.
Are we allowing multiple?
No, you only allow one 3-minute session. Did everybody?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, it has been a long 2 hours. Let's have a 5-minute break. For the rest of you. You're gonna do 5 before 5.
Should I probably take my stuff outside?
Yeah. I will trust you here. I will carry your big bag if you like.
Oh, it's heavy.
Okay.
That's my look back. So I totally videoed your clip separate and the guy that was going off hard. I videoed his separate. I sent them both to your email or to your phone so that you can post them as soon as we get in the car.
I won't be able to post them. Well, we'll post them when we go to like these ones.
Okay. Is that all the other stuff? Yes. Now I have a wireless modem so I can go. It keeps buffering. I can't believe they didn't tell me to stop recording.
Oh, no. I don't know. We'll talk about that later. Please, after you.
Thank you. That's a very good turnout.
If you're live right now, we'll talk about everything later, okay? Okay.
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 And we can close it too. Yeah, we can end it and start it back up. Because he's live out here.
Bye, everybody.
Jay was tuning in on Goods earlier.